This image that I'm going to show you, I'm so excited about because I have worked on the ultimate way to display this information for so long, and I think I found it. So this is my rhythm map. Some of you will have seen my rhythm map previously, like hand drawn in the planner, the Lunation Annual Planner, and that was fun, but this is like the new fancy version with all the fancy things. When we're talking about this rhythm of her own, the rhythm is based on so many things, and yet the rhythm is always the same. So many different cycles we can find that fit the rhythm, and yet here's the rhythm. And so, whether we're thinking about the season, whether we're thinking about our own internal seasons, the moon, the sun, the earth, it's all here in this map. And so, I'm just going to do a little talk through on it. Just a real short one, because really what's in the rhythm of her own membership in terms of the content when you get into the platform is goes deep, deep, deep into this. But this is sort of just like the framework, right? So around the outside, you can see the elements. And if it's a map, of course, we've got compass directions. So I haven't put them on this map, but of course, north is at the top and south is at the bottom. Let's just recognize that like that's not actually how the world works. North isn't always at the top. It just happens to be where you're standing, where north is. And we can forget that when we're working from, two-dimensional drawings and things like that. But for now, as a teaching model, it works. Yeah. And what I've really been working on over the last, I guess, 12 months is thinking about these. Um, if the map is separated into 8 kind of segments, which we often do in terms of the moon or the seasons, I wanted to find the names that actually made fucking sense to me about what those segments are, not names because they came out of a Celtic or a Norse culture, or names because they suit a particular modality of women's mysteries. Like, I wanted words that really felt like, yes, whenever we're talking about any part of this cycle, this is the feel, this is the vibe. And that's what you're seeing on the outside in the kind of greeny color. And so I'll just talk you through really quickly, but like I say, there's so much content about going deep into this in the platform. But it starts at so one thing I need to say is, so we're working on the compass, but then we're also working with the direction of the sun. Yeah, so the sun comes up in the east. So of course that's over there where it says generation and spring. And then, so this is for us in the southern hemisphere, the sun's coming up in the east, it's shifting across to the north at its highest point, and then it's coming down into the west. And when we get down to the south, we don't really see the sun, right? By that stage, it's kind of, that's the shadowy place. And so that's the way that we follow this map. We work our way around in a sunwise direction. And I'm going to start by explaining it at sort of, I guess, a beginning, but of course there's never a beginning because beginnings and endings are just part of cycles. But at the beginning where it says seeding, and seeding is, well, like it sounds, like this is where we seed intentions. This is where new things begin. It's the first breath. It's even before the first breath. It's like the void before you take the breath, that space in between. And so this is the new moon. You can see with the different patterns that are here, or the different, I guess, layers that are here. Like this is the place of the new moon. And so today we're in a new moon circle. So this is where we're working. We're working from a seeding perspective. In terms of the year-long season, we're pretty much still in, well, seeding, moving into beckoning at the moment. In terms of the year, right? So the energy of the spring is stirring, but it's still winter, and we don't really see a lot of action in terms of growth, but so it feels like something's going to happen, and that's the seeding and moving into beckoning. As we move around, all of that energy keeps increasing, just like the sun would throughout the day. So it starts, small and cool, and then it builds up. And so we're building through the beckoning. Beckoning's like it's like it's promising you something, it's drawing you in, but it's just you can't quite get there yet. But then it bursts forth, like at the spring equinox, late September, where everything's just like, it's here now. We've got this sense of warmth in our breath. When you breathe in the air, it just feels a bit different. The ground feels different, and that's that generative phase of like, okay, things are building up now. So we shift into building. And so, yeah, it's like it's increasing, it's happening. I can do lots of active work to do whatever it is that I'm trying to produce or create or generate. And then eventually it starts blooming. And this is the point where we can decide, is there anything else I need to shift or change or clear out so that I can get to the stage of fruiting, so I can harvest all the work that I've done before or all the intention that I've had before. It's like when everything is not just in full bloom, but now we have, something ripe that we can try and we can bring into ourselves, and there's a lot um, of it's past the phase of generation. There's not really anything else to do in terms of getting it to its fruition, and now we get to enjoy it. We get to enjoy it and celebrate it and harvest it and eat that luscious, juicy plum. And then there's a phase of tending, like what needs to happen now. So that might be like in terms of the season, and if you're a gardener, that's the phase where you're like, oh shit, now I've got 14 boxes of tomatoes that I need to do something with. Yeah, that's the tending. But it could look like a lot of different things in different ways. And then once we've kind of cared for that creation that we got to, then it starts to fall away in compost, and we can let go of all the bits that either didn't work or we didn't need. And as the composting happens, things start to transform and shift, and then we move back into that dreaming phase of, deep winter. Oh, I don't know. I don't really have any thoughts anymore. I don't have any form. I feel like I'm a bit in the void. And then that eventually shifts back into the seeding. So in that dreaming phase is sort of when we start to think about what do I want the next season to look like, or the next cycle, and then we can seed it. So it's a really quick overview, and you can see there's lots of different layers there, and they all speak to the 4 different streams that we've got in a rhythm of her own. So that very inner one is what I call the threads of becoming, and that's what we use in terms of spellcraft and action taking. We start in wonder, then we have to immerse ourselves fully into the wonderness of it. Then we have to start thinking about it. It's not okay enough to dream. We do have to use some actual thought, some actual on purposeness. We've got to find our resonance and our alignment, and then take responsibility for what we're doing. So you can see that's kind of in the same area as the tending, taking responsibility for the tomatoes that you grew. And then discerning, what did I need? What do I don't need? How am I moving forward? And then in that dreaming phase, we pause and we listen. What else is going to come to me? What's next in the cycle? So hopefully you can start to see, like, there's lots of ways we can be thinking about this, and yet the cycle always matches up. Because this is not just a wheel that turns and turns, it's actually a spiral. And so with each turning of the wheel, and each time you come back to one of those places, you're not in the same place. So you're still in seeding. You've done a full cycle, you're in seeding, and yet it's different because you're different. You've grown more, you've changed, you've gone through all that transmutation. And so here we are in a new phase, in a spiral, and sometimes we go deep into the spiral, and sometimes we come back out. And actually, sometimes we go the complete opposite direction than what I've just talked to you about. And that's totally okay too, because it's a dance. But somewhere we get to the center, and that center is the remembering and the belonging. So that's the place where it all meets together. So when we're in like perfect alignment and perfectly in rhythm, whatever the fuck that means, then we find that place in our center. But I believe that the community aspect and the connection with our people and with the land and with nature, animals, like that's a part of our belonging too, right? So it's almost like the container is on the inside of the map and also on the outside. We dance between those two. But I wanted you to understand that first, because it's important to know, like, sometimes we talk about the moon phases as though we just should know what's happening. And if you don't have this kind of map in your mind, it might not make sense as to even why a new moon and a full moon are different. Yeah, why we would do different kind of ceremonies or practices at those times. But hopefully with this, you can see, well, at a new moon, of course, we're going to be doing things that are seeding and wonder making and intention setting and sort of starting something. And by the time we get to the full moon, then we're for our alignments and what's working for us, so that we can come into that fruitful phase. And the way that you use it for yourself is to say, well, where am I right now? Yep, we just talked about what the moon's doing and nature's doing, the season's doing, but you might be feeling like you're totally in a release and fruiting phase right now, even though the season and the moon are really, in that bottom sort of southeast corner. And that's okay, because the cycle, the layers or the cycles are just all about understanding the depth of ourselves. And we're never just one thing, are we? We're many things all at once. And so this model, I've really tried to shift from this idea of like, oh, all of your your maps have got to line up, because I find that women feel really overwhelmed by that idea, and we'll talk about that in other circles in the future. But we don't need to line everything up. We just need to understand that actually we are deep, rich, like amazing beings with so many layers, and that's what this map is trying to show. Now, we could take this map and we could clear all the words off it and then do the exact same thing, just talking about the moon or just talking about the earth. So there are layers upon layers upon layers, and that's what you get to explore in the content. And then also, I guess the other thing I want to mention is you'll notice how one half, this top half, is a bit brighter than the bottom. So this is that balance of, like, there is a darkness and a lightness, which we see reflected in the sun and the moon, and so that's just kind of shown in that map as well. And it's equal and even, and yet sometimes it's not. Sometimes we feel like we're in the dark for 3 years in a row and we can't get the fuck out of it, and then other times we feel light for a long time. And again, that's okay. That's just our depth and our grace and richness.